the pace of change is absolutely increasing. And I think you see a societal reaction to that. In the 1800s, there was a group in England called the Luddites who were against industrialization. They like, we need to go back. We can't move forward. In the United States, there are some great examples of people who just have absolutely rejected any type of movement forward, and that is unfortunate. I think it's an unfortunate outcome of unstructured, unplanned for, and quite honestly, uncommunicated positive change.
Welcome everyone. Welcome to a episode of Chat with T. Today I'm here with Steve. Hi, welcome.
Hi T, how are you today?
I am great, and we will get a little bit into where you are dialing in from. But let me actually set up what is today's topic about, which you chose. And it is about change. Oh no, not again. Change is the only constant life. No, today we want to actually go a little bit deeper into the structure, the process, and the flavors of change. I think that's going to be very interesting. But I do know you, but probably some of you don't know you yet. So let's talk a little bit about yourself, about the change of how you, by the way, welcome to the team. Steve is joining our team here in SAP Signavio. He was already with SAP Signavio, but now joining the Market Impact Regional Execution Team in North America. So welcome, Steve.
Thank you, T. Happy to be here.
And yes, so let's kick it off. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Steve.
Sure. I'm a 26-year veteran of SAP. I've been in this space of helping customers get more value out of their SAP solutions pretty much that entire time. Most recently, came from the Signavio pre-sales team, doing demos, helping customers understand the value of implementing Signavio. But before that, it came from the training and adoption team, where we talked about not only project team enablement, but also end user enablement and change management, which kind of leads to where my personal background comes in, and my personal passions come in.
Very good. And so let's actually talk about that one sentence. I actually made an episode about it, about change is the only constant in life. Spoiler, by the way, it is not in math and in physics. There are a lot of different constants.
Yeah.
However, what drives you about the topic itself? What makes it so interesting that you want to spend the most valuable asset, there's time, with me talking about change?
So a little bit about my personal background. When I went to university, I was studying chemistry. I was a bit of a math and science kid. I think I've heard that you are as well, T. And I got to a point where chemistry was interesting, but it became a bit more mechanical than anything else, which is fine. But I took a class on what was called Revolution in Science, which was the first time I ever took a history class that started to explain not just the dates and times of things occurring, but the structure behind the change that happens in science. So there's this kind of perfect confluence of I was waning in my interest in chemistry, and suddenly this new bright topic came to mind. And what I realized about myself was I joined chemistry and also a lot of physics because I wanted to understand how the universe worked. I wanted to understand how things occurred in the world. And this topic of people and change and how societies change over time wasn't really that interesting to me because it wasn't this hard science. But when suddenly I was approached with this topic of how not necessarily the details, not the mathematics of it, but the structure of that change, suddenly this whole other world opened up to me about the mechanisms that drive change. History isn't the study of events and people, although that's the way we study it and the way we test it, but it's really the study of change. When nothing changes, science or history isn't being made. We ignore big gaps in time because nothing really changed. It's these events that occur that we study. And it was really fascinating to me and opened up a whole new world. And that's kind of driven my interests ever since, the way I see the world, the way that I see customers implementing SAP or leveraging Signavio. Everything is now flavored by or sprinkled with this idea of what is going on, what is changing, and how is it changing.
Mhm. I have to really, I'm actually taking some notes. I have to take a note about probably in terms of the duration, the longest process mining event log,
Right.
thinking about history. I think I love that one. Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
going to be, thank you for inspiring to do another episode on that one.
Yeah.
But can you let us know a little bit about what you mean about the structure of change, and give us maybe some concrete examples beyond, let's say, history, maybe towards some of your professional experiences.
Of course, of course. So, in my viewpoint, and from the studies that I've made, there's really three major, we'll call them flavors of change. We give them names. We call them, one is aging. So, personal anecdote. I play golf. That's my hobby outside of work. And right now, I'm getting better at golf. So, if you track my scores, they improve over time. There's going to come a point where my body starts to fail me and my scores are going to get worse. I haven't quite hit that point yet, thank goodness. But we can track this for any type of aging exercise, be it professional golfers over time, they get better and then they get worse. Be it even the efficiency of your let's say your iPhone. It's lightning fast at first and it peaks out, and at some point things start to make it slow down, and that's just aging. To other structures, we use these terms interchangeably, but they're actually very different. Evolution and revolution. Evolution is slow, incremental change over time. It's kind of the way we look at it. And then we think, oh, well, when it happens fast, that's revolution. But actually, that's not a very detailed way of looking at these things. Evolution is the reaction to outside forces. It is for survival. So companies, as well as biological entities, they evolve over time. I've watched 26 years of SAP evolving, reacting to outside forces, whether it's customer requirements or whether it is the competition or whatever it is. We've made adjustments over time, haven't completely changed who we are. Revolution is very different. Revolution is looking internally inside of an organization. This happens in science. This can happen inside of other organizations, let's say businesses, where you look inside and you go, this isn't working. We're not doing what we should be doing. And because the paradigm that we're living under doesn't work anymore. So we throw out that paradigm. In politics, we call this a real revolution, right? It's a monarchy. The monarchy isn't working anymore. We throw out the monarchy. It does be fast and violent, and then we have a new type of government, let's say a democracy, but we leave the old paradigm behind and we move to the new paradigm, more stair step. And again, it's for internal purposes. It might be influenced by external things, but it is for internal reasons. Then we can evolve going forward. So these three flavors of change are happening quite often, as you say, not necessarily constantly, but there is at least the aging aspect that's going on usually. There's usually, from a leadership perspective, there's a looking out at the landscape and saying, how do we need to adjust? And then, if you look at organizations like IBM, they were like, we're a hardware company. They're like, no, we're going to be a services company now. Let's change the structure of our organization. Whether that was completely successful or not, or whether they left behind some of the remnants of what they've been doing in the past, is a whole other type of conversation about the success of an internal revolution. But regardless, these are the three major flavors of change that I see happening all the time.
I love this notion, especially around evolution and revolution, because it just happens to be tomorrow is Independence Day in the States. I hope you will have some good plans and some good barbecues.
Yes.
And it didn't happen overnight. It actually took quite some time and a lot of different events had to happen at the right time, at the right moment. And while probably for the founding fathers, it was a series of extremely disruptive and fast events, it did take a lot of planning, a lot of time to get to that stage. And then also in evolution, we think of it as slow. But if you look at your cells, how quick they are actually changing all the time, it's
Yeah.
incredibly fast. It's just we don't perceive it. Yeah. So
Right.
it's a very interesting notion. I like this nuance. So maybe reflecting on yourself and your professional career. So
Yep.
you now not talking about the job you just started 2 days ago, but
Right.
when you came to SAP Signavio some while ago, where you were in pre-sales, was that for you a evolutionary step towards something, or was it more a revolution because it was something profoundly different?
That's actually a really great question. It was, in my entire career, unfortunately, T, I have to say, has been completely evolutionary. It's been completely reactive to outside forces. It has been slow changes over time. This move that I made, a year and a half ago from my old position into Signavio was literally just a minor change. The technology under my stories changed. They evolved, they morphed a little bit, but again, helping customers understand what's happening, wrangle that change that's happening, drive it to where they want it to be. That's always been that sort of theme. I got to add a new weapon to my tool belt, if you will, with
Mm,
Signavio. But I do know I have many colleagues who have found themselves in positions which were deeply unsatisfying, ungratifying for themselves, and have decided I'm leaving the software world and I'm going to go blow glass or whatever. It's completely revolutionary. Not because they needed to make more money or they wanted to take their skill set and move it into some sort of new realm, but they needed a paradigm shift. They needed for their own internal gratification that sort of stair step, that move completely different. So I think every person has their own drivers, has their own needs, and reacts accordingly.
mm. A total hard switch, but I want to actually address a little bit of flavor aging.
Yeah.
We go now astrophysics. Do you believe in the concept of time?
Do I believe in the concept of time? Yes, I believe in the time. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but would you say that time is then in the construct of how we measure it, like in seconds and hours? If you think about, let's say, the universe, from the Big
Mhm.
Bang expanding and probably, I don't know, sometime the no more energy and that's that's it.
Right.
If
The
you think
heat death
about
of the
the age,
universe. Yeah.
exactly, yeah. If you think about the aging aspect, I mean, to be quite honest, I've seen other colleagues who've been with companies for, let's say, 5 years, and they seem extremely old. There, you actually come across as a very young, young at heart person after 26 years.
Yep.
So, does it actually mean that you can influence the aging? Because if we look at it from the time aspect, it would be 10 years is 10 years. But it seems to me that, like your golf handicap, like the bone structure of your body, you can apparently influence it still, though, right?
I think this the curve. If you look at the curve, an aging curve is going to be a bell curve. Um, a an evolution curve is going to be this kind of wavy line moving up, and revolution is going to be stair step, right? So if you look at those curves, you don't really get to influence the structure. That's what I mean by the structure of change.
Mm,
What you can do is you can stretch out or slide the time bar that sits underneath that. So yeah, the bell curve exists. I'll tell you, T. As I was preparing for our conversation this morning, I got up. It's early my time. We're 12 hours off, so it's late your time. Uh, but I was very groggy when I got up this morning and I had to have a cup of coffee. And I was sitting there thinking, 10 years ago, I would have been firing out of the gate first thing in the morning. Coffee or no coffee wouldn't matter. I now need some sort of stimulant to get my brain engaged. That's just the aging aspect of this. In another 10 years, I might be a little slower than I am today. So I think the bell curve continues to exist. You can bend it, you can slide it perhaps, but I think it exists regardless. But yes, time does exist. It may fluctuate. We can worry about the physics of non-constant time at another, maybe over beer someday. But yes, in general, time is not the structure of change in its format, I believe, doesn't change, but everybody's curves are different. Does
Mm.
that make
And definitely the perception of time is also very relative to the different kind of events.
Of
Obviously,
course.
yeah, touching the oven plate or having a nice dinner with a loved one. Actually, now that you have shared quite a lot about, let's say, the structure and the different flavors of change, you actually let us have a peek into what led you to today. Let's actually go then further into the future.
Yeah.
So, would you say that we are getting better at change, or is it actually a continuous fight between, well, we might get better at change, but at the same time, the complexity is also getting faster at change? So let's see, it's still an undecided battle. What's your take on that?
Ah, boy. When you say we, do you mean you and
As a
I, or do you
humanity,
mean us as humanity?
society.
Yeah. I fear that by and large, we look at change and the structure of change. It's complicated and hard. It's easily uh, it's easily made the villain rather than embracing it. It's we still as a species haven't really understood it and really leaned into the change. The pace of change is absolutely increasing. And I think you see a societal reaction to that. In the 1800s, there was a group in England called the Luddites who were against industrialization. They like, we need to go back. We can't move forward. In the United States, there are some great examples of people who just have absolutely rejected any type of movement forward, and that is unfortunate. I think it's an unfortunate outcome of unstructured, unplanned for, and quite honestly, uncommunicated positive change. This is where organizational change management and communication and openness about what's going on, openness in an organization or openness in a society about what's driving the change, why we're trying to drive the change, what our goals are, setting those goals. All of those things are important in allowing a broader society to adopt
Mm.
new change. And I don't think we're very good at that just yet. There are some shining examples from my own history of people who I've looked at and seen how they've gone about it, and they're brilliant, but generally not very good. I wish we were better.
Mm. But maybe then coming back from, let's say, society, humanity, back into your own repertoire of maybe, I don't know what you would call it, tricks, life hacks, I don't know,
Yeah.
maybe some mental exercises, habits, behaviors, maybe something you can change, share with us, which you believe could be helpful, whether it's based out of good or bad experience. But I think
Yeah.
the thing is, what I always learned is that, like good times, make good memories, and bad times make good learning experiences. So let's have some from your potpourri.
Sure. So personally, the way I look at any change, and I try to stay positive. That's kind of my go-to. Um, is anything that makes me uncomfortable, I recognize as change immediately. You could get into a rental car and be uncomfortable because you don't know the dashboard. Well, that's just change, right? It could be a change in government, makes you uncomfortable. Could be If you're in an organization, you're implementing a new piece of software, it's going to make you uncomfortable. So recognizing that you in your life, most people tend to be fairly paradigmatic. I'm in a happy paradigm right now. Everything is fine. And anything that disrupts that paradigm is seen as a challenge to it, and feels threatening. And our fight or flight kind of
Mm.
natural reaction kicks in. So I see that. I recognize that in myself. So anytime I feel that, I'm like, okay, let's breathe through this. Let's understand what's really going on. Maybe ask some questions or make some assumptions about why that change is going on. But it helps me understand it. It helps me wrap my head around it. Also helps me communicate to those around me who might be feeling the same way. Like, hey, this is the way I see things. So that's sort of my life hack to deal with change. It's helped me um, see through what was obviously change that was coming down the pike. As a perfect example, when I joined Signavio, I saw where SAP was taking my old team. Uh, for good or bad, I understood what was happening. I understood why SAP was doing that sounds bad. Why SAP had made the decisions that was leading that team to what I saw as an eventual outcome. And I thought, hey, I'm okay with this. I understand it. I'm not going to panic, but that's not a place where I think I want to be. I don't think that's a place where I'm going to be successful. Where can I take my skills and use them for continued good?
Mm.
But not just accepting it, but understanding the drivers behind it, and then reacting appropriately to navigate those choppy waters was something that I've done a couple of times now, and led me actually to Signavio, which was fantastic, and eventually to this podcast.
Well, thanks a lot for being sharing these personal anecdotes and also your personal experience around that. I think this is really, really helpful and important to really keep up on the positivity. So we are already towards the end of the time, and I just have one more topic area I actually would love to see. Let's see where the answers go, because maybe we have to do a part two because of that.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, and that's just the entry question.
Okay.
What kind of music do you like?
I've kind of hung up on 80s music, specifically like alternative, new wave music from the 80s. That's my go-to jams.
All right, here we go. Did you like that music when you were growing up at that time and you did not change your preference, so to speak?
Well, so it's interesting that you should ask that, T. So I've actually read a little bit about this, and it's more anecdotal than anything else. But yes, of course, like you said, good memories, good memories create good thoughts, right? Whereas bad memories create good learning. It was good times. I was having a great time in the 80s. That was the music that I was listening to. I'm probably a little older than you, so like I was a teenager. I was learning to drive, first kisses, first dates, all those wonderful memories, and that was the music that was going on in the background. But what's funny is that I recently read again, it was anecdotal, but and I don't think it was hard science, but that there's a curve, that where if you plot out a person's age versus how they feel about the music that was popular at that age, it's an aging curve. There's a
Oh, wow.
peak where you think, hey, that's the best music that exists. And by the way, it doesn't matter how old you are. If you were born in 1950, the music of 1964 was the greatest music ever, and then it tails off over time, right? So there is this peak, because everybody's in a particular place in their life and they're listening to music, and that might extend out a little bit. The top of the curve might go down, and there are certainly individual examples of modern music that I still listen to. A bit of a Swiftie, but it's not like I listen to pop music or listen to what is popular right now. There's again certain examples, so it kind of tails off over time. But I looked at this curve and I'm like, "Oh, that's an aging curve. It's a perfect aging curve. The popularity of the music against your age It's absolutely perfect. So, how about you? What about what kind of music do you listen to?
Actually, the thing is that when growing up, being a teenager, I was really into drum and bass music, like this kind
Okay.
of electronic flavor. So jungle, raga, dancehall.
Yep.
And that actually got a little bit down, but also the kind of music kind of died out. But it is true that I do rediscover the 80s and 90s. So, for example, my playlist, I always have New Order, Blue Monday, Duran Duran. And actually, what I also notice is that in lots of culture, the 80s are really coming back, like Running Up That Hill
Yeah.
in Stranger Things. Yeah. So, I mean, okay, it was a bit referential there anyway, but I think it's quite interesting. I have to actually read up on that at the learning curve. I think let's stop here for today because I really want to digest that and definitely welcome you another time. It was really a pleasure. The time flew so fast, Steve. Welcome again to the team. And I can assure you, we will have some revolutionary experiences together doing the things we love. Thanks so
Ah,
much.
I look forward to it, T.
Do that.